We're up against a phenomenon that we have never seen, and that is the big lie. The big lie is not just stretching the truth. The big lie is not just fibbing. The big lie is creating a parallel universe.
The IOM, the UN Migration, it's the International Organization for Migration. Now, this is the biggest organization that deals with migration completely. And it is quite shocking when you look at that. The numbers of this, the IOM here was the Intergovernmental Committee for the Movement of Migrants to Europe. It was called PICME, born in 1951, and it was born about the chaos of displacement of Western Europe, as we talked about before. It successfully changed its names 3 times, from the International Committee to Migration to the International Organization of Migration in 1989. But it did so because it says, in its own words on the website, reflects the organization's transition cover from half a century from a logistics agency to a migration agency. Instead of helping people when they're in trouble, we're now a migration agency. I'm fascinated by that word. What do they mean by that? From its roots of operational logistics, it's broadened its scope to become the leading international agency working for governments and civil society to advance the understanding of migration issues, encourage social and economic development through migration. This lot have gone from wanting to help people, as you see in the Gaza response picture on the right, to saying that we now need to change policy to prove to everybody that international migration works and it helps your economy. And to that end, they have 22,500 people working for it and a budget of 3.8 billion. 3.8 billion. So they're out there, and you can see just on this website here, you look at there, they produce data that they're going, our work and partners and impact. Fascinated by this. Look at this down here, the partners and governments and donors. So governments, obviously, you'll expect to be our partners. And they've got 171, I think, in terms of that. Look at the size of this. This is their meeting room where they just talk about immigration. Imagine 171 in an organization like that with 3.8 billion budget. Do you think they're really turning around and listening to the people say, please don't bring more in? No. This is ones that they're creating all sorts of issues for us. And it's 175 member states. I was wrong on that. So we've got here partners and impact. You've got donors. And then I'll come down to the interesting one is later on. So it works with other donors as well, not just ourselves. So the European Union is a donor. Not only does it take money from European Union citizens, it then donates it to this organization, who then creates the policies for the European Union, which the European follow. Funding overview. Let's come and look at that. 3.5 billion in 2023, already earmarked 3.4 billion, and that was 23's numbers.
Indeed.
Just think of the size of this. What is 3.8 billion? That's quite a big organization. It's quite a hefty chunk of money. But I wanted to get in here, maybe a little, if it comes in, because we're going to talk about who's behind this, if it comes in that list. There was a list. Here we are. This is the list. Now, I talked about early on about the United Nations being big, and the UNHCR being big, and the IOM being even bigger. But on its own panel of organizations that are just not governments, but helping it, just take a look as I scroll through this. UN Economic Commission for Africa, International Labour Organizations, International Monetary Fund, Joint United Nations Programme on AIDS, Office of the UN Nations Children's Fund. Literally, not only is it getting funding from its own organization, all these organizations, which are all funded by governments globally, are all part of the process. So it's infested across all the UN. So when we're talking about a global organization, a big behemoth with people that we never see, don't speak about, don't know, don't understand us, they're all running these organizations.
Don't get a say in electing them.
Nope. Going down further, I might be able to come down. I picked up some odd ones. And I might pick them out if I can on my graph. Look down there, the Universal Postal Union. And even further down, it's like, where's it gone there?
World Bank.
The World Bank, obviously, the Council of Europe, which Council of Europe we know is looking after legal rules for the ECHR. So they're involved, and then even get even ones like the Mana River Union. But the one that caught my eye was right at the bottom was the Sovereign Order of Malta. So this is the Universal Postal Union. It's all about post. How come the Postal Union are involved in a big organization that links in with immigration? This is the Migration Network Hub that's been organized by the IOM. Working better together, it says. The hub brings together UN Network on Migration, all its stakeholders. And when you look through this, it is a massive hub, all these organizations all over the globe, which they're generically sending down their policy statements, their policy ideas, what we should do, how to convince us it works. Look at the numbers, 913 major hub organizations across the globe, on which they feed in lots of their money. I've opened up most of these. They give their policy statements. And then what happens is they're celebrating them. Then they're going to convince us all to change. Everybody's heard of the Global Compact for Migration, I should have thought. Anyone who's interested in it anyway. But this is the top policy that's gone down to all the countries who've signed up for it, most of those on the IOM, which indicates that we've got to have policies on migration and integration and you look at their words, migration provides immense opportunity and benefits for migrants, host communities, and communities of origin.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Does it though?
Yeah.
Okay, let's not question that statement.
That's right. And it's, however, when poorly regulated, it can create significant challenges. So the only way that we're suffering at higher house prices, at massive asylum migration, is because we're just regulating ourselves poorly, according to these wealthy individuals who are not impacted, but they do get their domestic servants and we give them a nice day. And that is a kind of nonsense that we have. In Europe, that system created the Pact on Migration Asylum. It was behind the big idea that was signed up by many of the European nations. But now under Geert Wilders and the Hungarians, they're fighting back against this. So they look at policy. They look at people. In the United States, they have a massive resettlement team about how to promote resettlement of individuals in the United States. Again, it's all about how good they are. Nothing about what you're going to talk about later, the criminality, the drugs, those people who are stealing for us, murdering, the rape issues that are going on all across Sweden, for example. Never see any of this negativity in it at all. And again, in the UK, if that was the US, this is the UK, the recommendations of government, which I mentioned before, they tell us what we're supposed to think and do. They have the celebratory day, the migrant domestic workers. And then they have the Global Compact for Migration is a youth policy. So it's indoctrination across schools, these documents to go out across schools. And then you take a look at some of the organizations. I've done the individuals from Malta, but then this is classic of the individual who is running it. This is Amy Pope. She's American. She is the Director General of the IOM. She talks about here with some chap called Steve Inscope as a host about what we see about migration, what's her job, what's her role. And so she's going to take on migration growing across the world, becoming increasingly complex. That's what the organization is facing. So is every community almost in the West now. It's becoming more complex. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. She says democratic elected governments around the world have to reckon with the anxieties that migration brings. Anxieties. Well, how does it feel when that woman went on to Trump and talked about how her daughter was brutally raped and murdered? Is that an anxiety? Is that a real fact of the criminality that these people just ignore because it's all about having a nice domestic servant's day?
And her salary, which no doubt will be
Huge.
yeah.
Yeah, and none of these people who work for the UN are working at the top for less than seven figures.
It was one of the things. Oh, sorry, Stella.
No, please.
That was one of the things I thought earlier when you were talking about the Knights of Malta, the Hospitallers.
Yeah.
I was thinking, is it simply that they know there's this reservoir of money, and that all they've got to do is ignore that it's destroying the West, and they get money, and they get a big salary, and that's all they really care about, and they get to look smug on their website, and I don't care about the anxiety stroke mass criminality, stroke horrors. They get to virtue signal and they get money. Is it as simple as that?
I think it is to a certain extent. What it is about looking at these individuals who are all very well heeled and obviously thinking, what do I do to determine self-worth in my life? I can get involved in these organizations, but it does a number of things for me. One, I'm going to get well paid. B, I can look great at dinner tables. C, it can salve my conscience because perhaps I was born into a wealthy family and I've not done anything really useful in my life anyway. So it salves that. But there's a whole lot of people that just know that they can become part of the immigration industry, right down the low levels, as we said, to the migration hub that then leads to 300 organizations across the UK and hundreds more across each part of the world, are all sucking on the teat of immigration cash, and they're not going to lose that if they can help it for themselves. And so we have that situation where you've pointed out the UN is funded by our own taxpayers' money or through organizations that we've donated to, who feed it to pay out to people who salve their conscience whilst destroying the nations that they live in. And as Rome is burning around them, they're not really noticing because at least they get to Davos.
Yeah, they've still got their villa in Central Plate or something.
So my point is to show to people here today that when you dig deeper, I'm looking at my organisation, the Centre for Migration. I'll be lucky to get like 25 to 50 grand in a year in a donation. How am I supposed to be able to compete, or the number of organisations like ourselves, when the budget just for research from that IOM is 150 million, and they've got equally the same amount of money on communications? Either something happens between our organizations across the globe that we try to come together to do exactly this, to compete against them, or we're going to consistently face ourselves up against the behemoth that is filled with these people that you see, from the Knights Malta to Amy Pope, who all sit in these organizations taking your taxpayers' funding. Yes, we might get Trump, who turns around and says we want to pull out. Even he, I don't think he will go this far. It'd be nice to see that he does so and start reducing the money that goes into them, but I doubt that they will. But I wanted the public to understand, and the people who are watching this, that there is a bigger group of people. When they say there's a conspiracy, it's actually there. They're not even hiding it. Physically follow the evidence at all time, and there you're going to get
It's
it.
literally the definition of a cabal or a conspiracy or something.
Absolutely.
Right.
Under the auspices of being nice and the UN.
Having normal people's good nature weaponized against them. And the net result, of course, is just industrial levels of rape and criminality and murders and endless horrors.
Yeah. And the nice people, the decent people that are generally trying to flee torture, are getting caught up in this because it's no longer about looking after those individuals who generally fall within the right definitions. It's about economic migrancy and the use of people smugglers as a long arm for their own indebtedness and creating income for them in the future.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.
We have these democratic systems throughout the West that have for 50 years done the opposite of what their populations want.
Yeah.
So it's a democratic system without democracy. That's the way it feels to me.
But
they're not
destroying our country.
really globalists, are they? Because they're not doing this to China and Africa and the Middle East. They're not saying those nations need to invite a lot of people from different parts of the world. So it's not actually global.
It's only one side.
It's anti-Western.
Yes,
They're
yes.
saying that there's something about a majority white Christian country that's inherently threatening, and we're going to destroy it. And that's it is exactly what they've done.